I'm Paul Blair. I'm the broker owner of a company called Gray Square. We're located here in Dallas, Texas, mostly. We have another virtual office in Houston and in Los Angeles as well. Company started a little almost 2 years ago, based virtually, and it's been going pretty well.
Very cool. So prior to finding us and hiring us, what were you doing before? Were you using Follow Up Boss or a different CRM? What did that look like?
Well, my CRM story started with Contactually back in the day, and I liked it. And then I ended up with Compass for a little while, and I tried to kind of port over to them as they bought Contactually, which was kind of weird. And then I realized it really wasn't what I wanted, and I kind of played around with Follow Boss on the side. And then as I left Compass and started my own company, Gray Square, I was like, okay, maybe I'll use Follow Boss as my main source. But I was kind of lost. And so that's how I got into kind of pushing into it. But as I learned to use it, I was kind of lost on how everything works until I met you, to be honest.
Okay. So how did you originally hear about us and find our information?
Well, as I poked around with Follow Up Boss and opportunities and website building and things like that for my business, to have my own website and integrations and things, I didn't really know what I needed. But as I interviewed with 5 or 10 different website builders and things and integrations with CRMs, I realized some of them had their own CRMs and this, that, and the other. And I was like, you know what, I really kind of just learned this one and a little bit, and I kind of like it, so I wanted to stick with it. So I stuck with it, and through that, I found in the follow, I think it was in the follow, probably in the Follow Up Boss Facebook group, where people or you were talking about a service to help you kind of set up the Follow Up Boss and maybe spring you into action, if you will, which I didn't even realize what it would do, to be honest, but I thought it would help. And so that's how I found you kind of early in my transition into full-time Follow Up Boss.
Yeah, kind of early for us as well with doing this. You're one of our first clients. And so I really appreciate you sticking with us through this ride of the past couple of years. And people might think you're a #1 fan because you always comment on when people are looking for someone to hire. So that's such a huge help of not just me saying, hey, we'd love to help, but seeing people like you recommend us is a huge help.
Yeah, no problem. It's a service that I like, and I feel like it can help others. I'm always happy to tell someone to look into it. If anything, look into it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched a little bit earlier about that you didn't really know what you were doing in Follow Up Boss. Can you expand a little bit more about what you tried and what problems you faced with setting up Follow Up Boss?
I mean, a lot of it was just action plans. I mean, there's obviously a bunch in there that you can use, but I got to go read through them, and I don't have the time, a lot of it, to do all the stuff. And then when do you implement it? I didn't really even know that you could just set it to automate starting the action plan. I just, you have a client, like, oh, which one? And then each client, I'm in there filtering and looking and trying to figure out which one's best. And so then I just had hundreds of clients with no action plans because I had to go in one at a time and try to figure it out and think about it. And then I have all the other clients on the market and things phone calls I got to make. And so it's just a lot of stuff that was just back burner that I was slightly trying to figure out. A lot of it was the action plan building and automating, to be honest. A lot of it was automation.
Yeah.
Didn't really even know what that was.
Yeah, Follow Up Boss can be deceiving because it looks really pretty and you think, oh, there's not much to this. But once you dive in, there's so many things you can do and so many different ways to do it and kind of get lost in rabbit holes. So definitely a struggle people face. So what ultimately made you decide to not do it yourself and hire us instead?
Well, I think it was because I hired a website builder, and they have a lot going on their back end on their side with search results and funneling, through PPC campaigns, clients into my Follow Up Boss and triggering all these things. And it turns out that your service not only helped me build Follow Up Boss, but it had a lot of ways that helped the integration with the company I was hiring. And so I was like, well, it makes a lot of sense to have both happen, because what you were telling me you could build and what they were building were both way above my head. And if someone else just put it together, and then I can learn it later, that was what I needed. I realized that. Sometimes you gotta let people do things that I don't need to do. Right. I can kind of oversee it later, which is what I did, and it helped extremely.
Yeah, learning to delegate and offload some of your work for sure. So for those who don't know, can you share a little bit about what services we did provide for you?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously implemented a lot of action plans that were very helpful, and they run for a very long time. If you want to keep them, some of them are years, some are short, but within that, there's a lot of automations. Like if I say, oh, this client's going to buy next year, we can switch them to a different plan so they're not getting emails every day. You get the cadence goes down, but we still email them throughout the year, as opposed to someone where I switch and Follow Up Boss to, let's say, they're going to buy in 30 days, then we're going to get a hold of them a little more often. Same as if it's a lead, we're going to, send different plans out that are a little more consistent and early and quick. But also within that, if they're doing something on my website, then it'll automate a different response and a different email that I would never have thought of to say, hey, by the way, did you like this house? And it'll send them a link to the house, like or something like that. And all these things together combined were very helpful to just automate everything right off the bat. So the services were a lot of automations, most of it was automations and action plans. And then it helped me understand those things by just watching it happen and learning how to use it and make adjustments along the way as well after the fact. Right.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So what results have you seen so far with those action plans? Have people been responding, and what does that look like?
Yeah, we get responses to them a lot, and I'll talk, and a lot of it's just conversations on the phone. I'll be like, hey, we finally get a hold of someone. They're like, oh yeah, I get all your emails. I love your little tips. And I'm like, wait, I don't know what tips we sent for sure. Thank you. Maybe I do. I've read most of the emails at this point, but not in the beginning. But people will say, we got all your stuff. We got all your emails, whether it's from the search site or, the property stuff that's going out and or the responses coming from the action plans. And then I do get quite a bit of responses to the action plans. Like today, someone responded out of one of them was a question with a choice 1, 2, 3, and they were like choice 1, and they explained why, and it was great. I didn't send that, didn't ask them the question, but I did want to know, and so now I have my answer. So these things have helped extremely. Just keeping in touch, being nice to the client. It's just nice touch points here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share a little bit about what our support was like either at the beginning or now with working with our setup?
At the beginning, it was great. I mean, it was pretty much plug and play. You gave a pretty detailed description on when and where things would happen, and they happened pretty precisely on those dates. You were like, well, we're going to start on this date and we're going to be done on this date. And that was pretty quick and easy. When it came to questions, honestly, I didn't have many because I actually watched all the videos you sent me to explain all the things you did, which answered all the questions, to be honest. So there was very few coming out the gate. The videos were very informative, and I used them to onboard agents to our company. And I'm like, you can watch all these videos and understand how the system works. Because if you ask me a question, I'm going to send you the video. And so it does help us, but with you and questions, how it's worked out ongoing, you've been great. Every time I've had a question, how does this actually work? What does this do? You either send me a Loom explaining it, which is what I do with my agents, or you send me a quick email that does explain it, depending on the question. I haven't had that many, but I've always had a pretty easy and detailed response when I ask.
Awesome. So glad to hear. So if someone were watching this and they were on the fence with working with us, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that this is a service that's necessary, in my opinion. A blank canvas Follow Up Boss is very difficult to build out. This is a service that's plug and play, in my opinion, and you're immediately going, full speed with full automation, with full service Follow Up Boss. It's really doing everything that you would think you could get it to do on your own, but it's immediate and you're out there and going. And then you can make your adjustments after that. We're a year and a half later, still running pretty much the same as she set it up, but I've made plenty of adjustments or add-ons to it because I learned how after her setup.
Right. Yeah. Personalizing it more to you and your brand.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.